Welcome everyone to the Somerford Associates podcast. Where we'll talk to your peers and innovators in the tech industry. And today we're in cybersecurity. On our podcast, we cover the trends in the industry. Hopefully those that we discuss will resonate with you, and you'll get a peek into Somerford's clients and partners who are dealing with issues that you're probably facing at the moment too. This particular series, we're highlighting women in tech, and so I'm interviewing women and talking about our work. And so today I'm welcoming Marie Moe from Mnemonic. Welcome, Marie.
Thank you. So happy to be here on your podcast.
No, my honour, my pleasure. Today I'm welcoming Marie from Mnemonic, and they're a partner of Somerford. They provide security operations as a managed service for our clients. And Marie's one of Mnemonic's senior IT security consultants, working with the threat intelligence and the incident response teams. So that's obviously a very core part of being a SOC. So I'm especially pleased to have been able to fit you in, Marie. You fitted us in. It's an honour. So today we'll discuss how Marie's got there, what Mnemonic do, and then we'll go into some of the recent developments in the threat landscape and insights in incident response that she can bring to us. And we'll obviously, because you have the privileges of looking across a lot of organisations, it's going to be quite interesting for those who are within one organisation, I hope, to have a taster of a lot more. And we'll leave with some next steps where you can find out more. So tell me about Mnemonic and yourself.
Yeah, so a little bit about Mnemonic. As I said, we're a provider of cybersecurity services. We have a team of security consultants, security product specialists. We have threat researchers like myself, and also incident responders. We have ethical hackers, and we have the Argus security platform that we are selling to customers and providing them with a solution for managed security services. So that's Mnemonic, and a little bit about myself. So I've been with Mnemonic for a little bit over a year now. I have more than 10 years experience working with cybersecurity. So actually, I started out with doing a master's in mathematics and a specialization in cryptography. And that was what got me interested in cybersecurity. Or it wasn't called cybersecurity back then, it was called information security. So I decided to do a PhD in information security, where I was working on lots of theoretical mathematical models for how to calculate I'm not going to go into all those details, but basically I looked also at the intrusion detection systems and way of modeling security using sensors and sensor networks. So after the PhD, I had spent almost 10 years in academia, so I really wanted to get out there and get into industry.
Start applying it.
Got a job. Yeah, I got a job working for an electronics company back in Norway, and that company produced road tolling systems. But I was on the R&D team working on the future car-to-car communication systems, which was super exciting back then. More than 10 years ago. That was
really cutting edge.
Yeah. That was cutting edge, and it was really fun to do that. Lots of hands-on experience working out in the field. Driving cars back and forth with antennas on the roof and testing
and trying to hack into them.
Yeah, actually more testing that the communication systems worked, that the protocol worked. And I also worked a little bit with standardization of security protocols in connection with that. So I worked for Etsy on some standardization committees. And then after that, I wanted to work more in cybersecurity. So I was so happy, I was so lucky that I got a job working for the Norwegian government doing cyber incident response. So I got a job with NorCert, which is the national part of the National Cybersecurity Center in Norway. And I spent 4 or 5 years there. I was for 2 years. I was the team leader for the SOC, which was a 24/7 operation, and yeah, that gave me a lot of experience. I learned so much working for them,
Yeah,
and
you'd
I
hope
also
they're
did
cutting
some.
edge in security, obviously, for because you if you're going to have
Yeah,
to secure something, it's nothing more important
yeah,
than our nation's secrets and stuff. So,
yeah, and also just getting introduced to that big international security community with the
mhm.
collaboration between the different search teams around the world was really fascinating, and I got to meet a lot of very clever and interesting people that way, and
Mm.
travel to lots of conferences and such. So that was great experience for me. And after working for Norsert, I got into more cybersecurity research. So I worked 5 years for Sintef, which is the biggest research, an independent research institute in Norway. And I also there was after a while promoted to team leader. So I was the research manager with a great team of people that were, looking into cybersecurity research. And while I was at Sintef, I also headed a research project that got some attention, which is about the cybersecurity of medical devices, in particular pacemakers. So I have an implant myself. I have a pacemaker myself, and I that motivated me to start that research project. So that was
Wow.
something that
So
was really worthwhile doing.
even pacemakers now are connected enough to need a security uh,
Yeah.
wrapper around them. That's insane.
Yeah, I had my pacemaker for almost 10 years now. And when I got the pacemaker implant, there was no focus at all on cybersecurity of these devices. And when I learned that my pacemaker could be connected to the internet, that was, of course, something that I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into and have a look at. And yeah, unfortunately, I found some security flaws with that system. So I've been working a lot with also in collaboration with the community around regulation of medical devices and also vendors, and been speaking at numerous conferences about these issues as well. And
Yeah.
then after Syntef, I started working for Mnemonic, and I was back in the incident response world, and more day-to-day operations, and also diving into threat intelligence, looking into having a good overview of the cyber threat landscape, doing briefs on that. Making advisories to customers about how to deal with different threats and so on. And I really like that. It's a lot of fun. And I'm also in the UK, so I'm with the London office for Mnemonic, and that's great. So
Yeah.
that's
So
where I am today.
it
So
sounds
that's
like the
my
culmination of all of your
resume.
experiences, this mnemonic role, because it's got the research and then it's also got the incident response side of it as well. So
Yep.
everything's come together perfectly. It's always like you planned out your CV beforehand. Does
Yeah,
anyone
well,
actually ever?
it was not planned out. Well, actually, I
No.
forgot to mention that I've also had this 20% position. So I kept in touch with my university, and I got this position as an associate professor for the Norwegian Technical University. So I've been teaching students about incident response for the last 6-7 years, and
That's
that's also
great.
something that's really really rewarding. And as part of that job, I also got to be a supervisor for master students working on their master thesis. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's a
been a
really good idea by that university because having someone who's working in industry as well as the professor, they'll know that they're doing cutting edge stuff rather than perhaps getting stale in a way.
mm.
Mm,
And also I feel like it's part of sort of giving back in a way,
yeah.
and also making sure that we have some good recruits for hiring later.
Long-term
So
recruiting and giving
it's
back.
a it's a long-term plan.
Yeah, I suppose that's why you're talking to me now as well, because it's sort of giving back some of your time and sort of showing that women can be doing all of these quite technical, cool roles as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing stopping women from working with this. I mean, it's really something that I would recommend girls that are interested in tech to pursue. And there's so many opportunities if you want to go into cybersecurity. So I really recommend that. Today there's not a lot of women in my field, but I'm seeing that like from year to year, there are some female students, and they seem to be like increasing a little bit at least,
Yeah.
which is encouraging. And that's something.
It's a new it's a newer field anyway. So I did engineering at university. We had like a half of us were women at the time there. So, it'll come in cybersecurity too.
I hope I can be an example of a woman that has succeeded in this field that might inspire some other women.
Yeah. Right. So shall we talk about the threat landscape? Because what's so interesting to me is that it's constantly moving, and I have no idea how you'd keep in track. I don't know if you have to scour the dark web yourself, or what. How do you do it? How do you keep in track of the threat landscape?
I mean, you can. There are tools and systems you can. You can scour the dark web, and that's a possibility. And there are so many different resources where you can get your threat intelligence data from. Like you can subscribe to data feeds. There are also open data feeds out there that you can get access to. And also just reading articles, keeping up to date by, for instance, listening to podcasts like this one. There are a number of great podcasts out there where you can get an overview of what's going on. But I guess that the best is if you have first-hand access, like we do at Mnemonic, where we actually help clients with responding to threats, detecting things in their systems, and from that learning about how the attackers are working. That's one way of keeping track of the cyber threat landscape. But there's a lot of information to take in, and it requires a certain skill also to be able to filter out the correct information. Because
you have
otherwise
to know your
can
environment. If you're all in Windows, you're not going to be caring about some gap or something that focuses on non-Windows things. So you have to know what you're securing as well.
And also knowing your sources and the quality of different sources, and knowing who also what is the thing you're looking for. Like, what are your intelligence requirements? Is something tasking you with this? Are you looking for certain, do you care only about the cyber threat landscape for your products, or in my case, I need to know a little bit about what our customers do care about. So it's something that requires some experience, I would say, to work with.
Absolutely. And in the and now they're always evolving. What's newest at the moment that you've been talking to clients about?
So when just giving a high level overview of the threat landscape right now, I can't really not mention ransomware because that's been all over the news lately. With, for instance, the Colonial Pipeline incident in the US. We also, it's a constant, threat to organizations, both big and small. So this is something that hits a lot of different organizations, and has unfortunately also hit some of our customers. So ransomware is really a big nuisance, and something that's been increasing over the last year. Also, when you add the situation of COVID-19, the shift in the workforce, starting to work from home, combining that with the cyber threat landscape evolving in the way that the devices that are on traditional neural network parameter have been under increased stress, increased attacker attention the last year or one. I guess it's more like 1.5 year now.
Yeah, sustained attack for all of that time.
Yeah, more than a year now. Since we've been working from home, everyone started logging on remotely.
Hmm.
So if you have a network monitoring, things will look different since people started logging on from home, like increased use of VPN, maybe increased use of remote desktop protocols, and so on. So depending on how you had designed your network before people shifted, uh, yeah, your situation might vary because some organization had already, started using the cloud to a greater extent, while others were still sort of in the local network, the on-premises devices. You will find yourself in a little bit different situation based on those two starting points. And then you have the increased attacker, attention to trying to log on, to trying to find weaknesses in your perimeter devices. That has also changed,
So it's
the
been
threat
mostly,
landscape.
has it just been a volume of attacks have gone up? But also, because the volume of normal accessing in these more remote ways, it's harder to spot them as well. Is that the
Yeah, so before you wouldn't have that many logging on from
no?
remotely, right? It would maybe be easier to spot the anomalies.
Hmm.
Well, now all the traffic seems to be logging on remotely. You might have a harder time, having a good monitoring and visibility into that. But it could also, depending on how you did your network monitoring setup architecture, becoming an advantage
Mm.
because you might be able to shift the way you're thinking about the monitoring your logins, and maybe even switching to that kind of zero trust architecture, which is something that's become like more popular lately, where you don't trust devices from within your perimeter. You sort of assume breach in a way. You assume that all access requests might be hostile and have to be verified, properly authenticated before they're allowed some access. And yeah, I'm sort of going over into how to protect now. I'm sorry, I was
No, but
moving a
they
little bit
go
away from the
hand
threat
in hand, though,
landscape.
don't they? They go
They do,
absolutely hand
but
in hand.
I just wanted to say that things have changed a bit over the last year, and the most important change, I guess, has been this working from home situation, which makes things a little bit different for us as defenders, and also a very big pressure from the attackers. Scanning for vulnerabilities in all those network exposed solutions, like for instance VPNs, and they're also at a more scrutiny of this device from the security researcher community. That led to more vulnerabilities being found,
Mm.
and then there's always a lag between a vulnerability being found, security patch released, and then system administrators actually implementing that patch and updating all the systems. So you have like a time frame,
There's
a
a little
window of
sweet
time.
window where people can actually attack you. Okay.
Yeah, where you're exposed. And we've
Mm.
seen the last year or so that there's a lot of these, for instance, firewalls, VPNs, and so on. There has been a lot of vulnerabilities exposed and also exploited by attackers. So you have to be really, on your
Switched
toes.
on. It's
You have to be ready to quickly update these critical systems because
yeah.
otherwise your network is exposed.
Well, I see that
Yeah,
kind of that operational efficiency twofold, really. So, like, if people are developing super fast their updates and their firewalls, then without thinking the security, then you might get some mistakes and some gaps. And then on the flip side, within the security part of one's organization, you have to be just as quick to develop to catch up with the patches and get them
yeah,
found under, you scouring outside to check that you are up to date and then implement them as automatically as you possibly can. So I
yeah.
suppose this is where dev and sec really start to merge together.
Yeah, I think it is important to stress that this is not only a technical issue, it's very much
People.
related to people and processes. And
Mm.
something that is really important when it comes to incident response is to be prepared. So how do you prepare, for instance, to be hit by ransomware? Let's say every organization should think through this. Like, what if I got hit by ransomware? What would I do? What could be the consequences? How can we prepare to like keep our business running even if we got hit with ransomware? So that all goes into your business continuity planning, and you need to have plans. You need to have a plan. You need to develop that plan, but you also need to maintain it, and you need to test it, and you need to practice it. So it's good to have you need to have backup of your system's backups. But if you never actually tested, if you're able to access those backups, if you're able to roll back to those backup in a stressful situation, then you're exposed. So you also need to be ready to sort of pull the plug to a network in case, like quickly when it's needed. You need to have some that has that authority to say, okay, now we are segmenting, severing these systems, because when the ransomware attack happens, you have very little time. This varies a little bit between the different threat actors, threat groups. We've seen some threat groups that use maybe they used to use several days from the initial access until they rolled out the ransomware and started encrypting all the files on the network. While we also seen some cases where this is a really short time frame, like hours, maybe even minutes, from they have access to your system until everything is, encrypted and available for you, and your only choice is, or I guess it's not the only choice, but the choice you would recommend is rolling back to backups and having, a process for that.
So it depends on the threat actor. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we've seen threat actors evolving a lot in the ransomware.
They sound like they're becoming more industrialized. I read an article where there's people who write these programs and people can just like buy them to use. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's so industrialized. So it's like a platform for the.
Yeah, it's something called ransomware as a service.
That's it.
So what we've seen is there are some threat actors that do this. So it's their business model basically. So they take lower risks themselves by letting someone else do the actual intrusions, but they take a cut of the earnings. So you sort of pay to be able to use the ransomware platform, and then there's also this industry around something called initial access brokers, where you can buy. There's a market for buying and selling access to systems. So, for instance, leaked list of usernames and passwords. Also, tested access. So, someone's actually logged in, or someone's actually done an initial access and initial intrusion into your system, but they decided not to pursue this opportunity, not to try to hack into your whole organization and use as access for something. They just sell it to someone else, and then they get the opportunity to hack into your systems. So that's also something we've seen in the ransomware threat actors. And we also seen this shift in tactics the last year where they're doing something called double extortion, which is really bad, which means that traditionally they got access to your system, they did a lot of reconnaissance, got to know your system, they increased the privileges, got maybe tried to get domain admin access, and from there rolled out the ransomware, and also with a ransomware note that demands some money, like the extortion. But double extortion means that they're trying to make money twice on you, or they're trying to increase the pressure on paying by, before they do the encryption of all the files on your system, they do the internal reconnaissance, searching for sensitive data, like sensitive information on your system, like the things you want to protect, like for instance the HR records, or something that that would be embarrassing if it was leaked online. So they then retrieve or exfiltrate that information, steal that data, and then they do the encryption. And that means they have like a double ammunition. So uh,
Yeah.
they they threaten to leak the data online. So they have dedicated leak sites, it's called, for this, which is on the dark web, where they will publish your leaked data, and
Mm.
they sometimes will publish a little bit of it just to show that they have this data.
Mm.
And then if you do not pay, I mean, yeah, they
So
will
it'll
they
have
will
some sort
also,
of personal embarrassment factor, so that
yeah.
someone in charge is even more likely to want to pay.
Yeah,
Goodness
and
me,
this
who
is
are
getting
these
really,
people? It's just so
it's getting
prevalent.
really bad. It's getting really bad. I think there was this really bad incident in Finland um, where very sensitive data was stolen related to, people's patient records,
Mm.
like a psychology data,
God.
or yeah. So in that case, the extortionists, they contacted the patients and tried to also extort the patients because they got access to this really sensitive data, and then they threatened to release it online unless you paid.
Mm.
So yeah, and sometimes they also do a different tactic, is the DDoS extortion, where they contact the company and say, if you do not pay, we will launch a DDoS attack on your and make your website unavailable. So that's a
Oh,
different. So that's not ransomware, but it's also sort of the same extortion
it is
practice.
and it's a big threat for people who are only doing e-commerce or just,
Yeah,
yeah, okay. Are the police
yeah.
keeping up with it? Because obviously the whole cyber landscape is new and regulators take a while to keep up. Are the police able to keep up yet? Or?
So the police is well, I don't have a full overview of the police everywhere, but at least in Norway, there is a center built up that we have a collaboration with.
Mm.
So the police are also collaborating internationally through the Europol collaboration, and they actually have been able to catch some of these criminals and taken down some of the botnets that have been used. So, for instance, Emotet, which was a very yeah a botnet that was very active last year, was taken down in a combined police effort, also in collaboration, also with the IT security and it's not only police, but the police is also collaborating with industry on these takedowns. So Emotet was responsible of spreading a lot of ransomware too. So I think that was. I mean, you can debate how successful some of these takedowns have been historically, but I think it's commendable
Yeah,
and good
okay.
that this is actually uh, yeah, sometimes you are successful in taking down the attacker infrastructure, and also in some cases even catching the attackers. So
Cool.
that feels very gratifying for us as defenders when we see that happening. That's the
Yeah.
best news when I read about some Russian mafia that got arrested, that had made big money on some of
Haha.
these scams.
The goodies got
I like that.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does mnemonic help with uh, this area for companies? Do you have services specifically for threat intelligence or scanning?
Yeah, so we can help companies that are starting to uh, digest threat intelligence. But I think it's really important that you, before you start, paying for the subscribing different feeds and so on, that you and also you should know that threat intelligence isn't only about the indicators that are shared on these different feeds. It's a lot about how you actually consume the information on the other side. So if you're not ready to use the threat intel information into your processes internally, then it's really no use.
Mm.
Then it'd be like just a huge fire hose of information coming at you, and if you don't know what to do with it, how to filter out the things you need, and how to implement that into your internal systems processes, then that's not really that useful. So one thing we can do is to go in and help companies with assessing their own needs and their in a way of assessing their maturity level when it comes to how they can make use of threat intel information.
That must be
And
really
yeah,
reassuring, actually, because if you have the fire hose of even your conversation just then, we're like, whoa, there's so much to. We
it
luckily
is.
have it. Our internal CISO is amazing. So, this is not my role. So it's like, for me to hear about it all. But I suppose it's very useful to know the maturity model and what first baby steps you could do to improve. Yeah.
Yeah. So you need to first, make sure that you are at the right level to actually consume threat intel before you can use it to enrich your, your security posture, the way that you're securing yourself, and when it comes to cyber.
And it's all people and process. It's such a common theme in our podcast where
Yeah,
it's
it's a lot
everyone's,
of people and processes. That's so important.
yeah. And how about incident response readiness? Is there something that everyone should do, like to be prepared for an incident?
Yeah, I think everyone should do that. So at least look into your plans and procedures. If you do you have personnel that knows what to do in case there's an incident, or I mean, in some cases you could have a third party vendor helping you with that. In that case, you should also, exercise that. Have some walkthroughs of those procedures, or have a tabletop exercise and learn from that and implement whatever comes up during that exercise to make your plans better. One thing that usually comes up when we do such trainings is that you might not have the required visibility into your network to actually. You might discover that you don't have access to the information you need in order to make an informed decision when it comes to the incident response. You might not have availability of the relevant logs. You might not have the people trained in retrieving that information from the logs. You might not have the available tools that you need for the investigation. Let's say that you outsourced things to a third party or using cloud services. You might not have thought about this when you made the contract with them in case an incident. Do we know how to isolate and control access to our compromised systems? It's really something you should think about. And also have just simple things like have an updated list of contacts, who to call, who to alert in case of an incident, and how to contact them in case, let's say, email isn't working because your systems are down. You need to have some way of accessing
Of course.
that list of who to call and their phone numbers. So have those. You can also train those alert communication procedures. So yeah, and also then of course uh, how to coordinate with different third parties like your vendors, and yeah, that's something I think is really important.
Yeah, for sure. The very good tips. I'm sure people will be writing them all down now. If they're not doing some, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, for our partners as well, observability is a huge thing with Splunk, and just being able to get the logs or any of the data and having that
Yeah.
full
So
coverage.
yeah, that's a really good example of a very useful tool
Yeah.
that you can also practice how to use that in an
Well,
incident
indeed.
response situation.
Are there lots of people in the military who are in cybersecurity? Because my husband is, and they do a lot of like practice call outs, practice this, practice that. And it seems like it's really drilled into them to like prepare for the disaster that might happen.
Yeah,
Um,
but also having people that have the authority to make decisions. So you
mm,
have someone that is actually managing the incident in a good way. Yeah, because sometimes you have to do like a bit controversial things like shutting down systems
yeah.
uh, that
um,
will have impact on the company,
mm,
like the uh, revenue of the company. You
yeah.
might need to do things like in the Colonial Pipeline incident recently, where they shut down the gas supply for several days as a precautionary measure. So the ransomware hadn't made it into, at least according to reports, the ransomware hadn't made it into the OT systems or the systems actually delivering the gas.
Oh, right.
But since their IT systems, their support systems were, not working, they decided to also take down the actual physical delivery.
So they saw that's a huge risk, I suppose, if those sensors or control valves, I don't know what there are on pipelines, were compromised. They thought a lot of lives would be in danger, so they had to shut it down. And to do that, the power you'd need in their company to be able to make that call.
Yeah, so that's something that you need to have people that have that authority to be able to make those kind of unpopular or business impacting decisions. Yeah,
that's really interesting. Oh, it's been fascinating speaking to you. So thank you very much for coming in. If anyone else is interested in following up, where would you want to point them to so that they could hear more?
So there's lots of resources. I mentioned there are other podcasts. So Mnemonic has also a podcast series that you might want to check out. We are also giving webinars on different topics, which you can also read about in the Mnemonic yearly security report. So that's, some links to further information.
Well, thank you. And obviously, people, if you want to connect with us on LinkedIn as well, you may. I hope you found it interesting. I certainly did. My eyes opened into the double extortions and the DDoS extortions and all different ways that, we're threatened. And so, I'll let you get on with your busy role in protecting our clients from this. So thank you ever so much, Marie.
Thanks for having me.
I hope you're enjoying our Women in Tech podcast series. At Somerford Associates, we are really passionate about platforming diverse voices. So check out somerfordassociates.com for the full Women in Tech series and follow us for more inclusive content in the near future.